Hi there, this is Jason Snadden, and here I am with Alana Mai Mitchell. And I'm very excited to have Alana here because she has just written this amazing book called Being Brave. And I was one of the very lucky ones that got a very early copy of her book, and I loved it. And whilst I knew some of Alana's journey, I didn't know all of it. And it was a wonderful experience to be able to read her book. And essentially, I'm going to get her to share more of her journey. But what it made me realize is how we all go on such journeys in our lives, and how we can actually go down particular rabbit holes and either be the victim of those rabbit holes, or we can propel ourselves out to create more of who we truly are. And I really, this is a real example of that, of you really stepping into the fullness of who you are. And it's been a joy to witness you on your journey, Alana. And so just to backtrack a little bit, I met Alana probably around 3 years ago. And then we reconnected when you were on your creating your coffee bean journey. You were doing Acuity. And what always struck me about you, Alana, is your joy. And here you talk about your joy, your journey back to joy. And so welcome. And so tell us about your journey. Tell us a bit about your book, and then well, first of all, what made you decide to write a book?
Well, the first inspiration for writing a book came from a lull. So I was at the end of facilitating a bunch of workshops and was at a point where I wasn't really compelled to do anything in particular other than my day job, and no side projects, which is what I usually have going on a lot of. And so I dived into meditation, and I meditated pretty much every day. And then one day the thought arrived, why don't I write a book about my experiences? And that turned into a book that briefly covers the start of when I began, the start of my life, but focuses on my 6 years of 5 involuntary mental health hospitalizations, and goes from when 2.5 years ago a doctor told me I would be homeless, to the point where 3 months after that I had landed a 6-figure salary and went on to create a joyful life, and more recently just bought my first home.
Yeah, such a journey. so yeah, it's again proof of, you can have some pretty dramatic roller coaster rides in life, and how you propel out of it. So what is your hope with the book, around your story? What is your hope around impacting people with it?
Yeah, I hope that more people can open up and share their stories, whether they're related to mental health or what they've been through, and come from a place of acceptance for the whole of their life, in all that they are, in those ups and downs that you've mentioned through that. And one of the ways that they can do that, if it's mental health related, is another idea that was born was the Being Brave Foundation, which is where people can really transcend the stigma of mental health and see that it is an opportunity to bring about valuable change instead of being something that's, a limitation.
And that's the thing. There is a bit of a stigma, isn't there, to mental health. And will you share in your book, how unpleasant it is in the hospital once you're in the hospital system? Do you think your book will make an impact, perhaps to contribute some changes in that sort of environment?
Maybe. I hope it would. Absolutely. I've sent my book to some of the hospitals that I stayed, and connected with some of the person who was my caseworker, and he was just amazed. Even the coffee business that you mentioned before that I had at Australia's famous Bondi Beach markets, I had a stall there, and I noticed a lady looking across my products and she was one of the nurses that looked after me while I was in hospital, but she didn't know it was my stall at that time. So I got to see the joy of her realizing that it was, oh my gosh, that business that was set up in hospital, here it is in Bondi Farmers Markets for real. So I definitely see that there could be more elements of people starting projects, working with their ideas, creating things within the hospital environment, so they can have a platform that launches them to greater things after hospital.
Yeah. I mean, this is that's the wonderful thing, you know, you created that whole coffee business in collaboration with another, you know, someone else that was in hospital with you. And I reckon that would be a rarity, people actually having, you know, being in that sort of environment, going through their own healing, but actually using that as part of the healing, to actually have that inspiration to go, well, let's use this opportunity to create and discover what's actually here, and you know, testament to you for doing that. And that's when I really connected with you, when you were out after that admission and you were in there creating, you were working on Acuity. And the thing that I noticed, and I didn't know the backstory at that time, but I knew that you were such joy, and it was so evident, you know, and how you came across on social media with what you were doing. It was just gave you so much joy. Do you think the joy aspect is what really contributed to your healing?
Yes, I think so too. And I think the joy, you tapped into that, the joy also created more things from that. So it was because that I created Acuity Coffee and was sharing Acuity Coffee that people
so
in my networks, so passionately, that people in my networks took notice. And it was the sharing of the content for Acuity Coffee that landed me my role where I currently work. And I originally came into the organization looking at content creation for businesses, which is what I had done for my own business. So it just goes to show you, if you feel something joyful about it, then share it.
Yeah. So it paved the way for your corporate career, your corporate advancement, really.
Yeah.
Interesting.
In that return, I became more senior than what I was when I previously was in corporate.
Wow. And just on that note, that's quite a good segue to my question around the corporate environment. I mean, you had some great support on your journey when you were going through your mental health challenges. How do you think your journey is actually helping you destigmatize mental health in the corporate sort of environment?
So when I shared my story on LinkedIn, parts of it, not when I first started out, I had this overwhelming sense of acceptance. I accepted it within me. And so people who I shared it with also in turn accepted what I was sharing, because, you know, we create the whole of our reality. So I created a reality of acceptance. And I had people open up to me about what was going on in their families and talk about the things that they hadn't felt comfortable talking about. But because I went out there and was an example that it was okay and it was safe and you could talk about these things, that they in turn had their own activations, if you like, where they shared their stories as well.
You point out something really important here, in that accepting yourself, loving and accepting you. That's absolutely key, right? It's something I teach my clients is that, you know, when you fully truly accept yourself, then it doesn't matter, right? And you will only have things show up negatively if there's something out of alignment for you, out of alignment. You know, people will, if you're not believing in yourself, for example, that aspect will be shown back at you in some way. So you getting to that point of actually loving and accepting yourself fully gave you the strength to, well, not only write this book but also share your story. Would that be right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And through that, impacting or opening up the opportunity for others to be able to share what's truly going on for them, and perhaps move into accepting themselves, right?
Yeah.
Wonderful. And so you also talk about in your book, you through this process you met your love, you manifested your partner.
Yeah.
Did that sort of come as a as an unexpected benefit of being in your joy, or how did that sort of evolve for you?
Oh gosh. Well, originally it came out of I was looking for a housemate at that point, and I got introduced to this guy called David, and David was just the happiest guy that I had met. He's from Colombia and is just amazing, and so I thought, oh, he could be a potential that I invite to live with us from a housemate setting. So that happened, and then he kept making more moves, and I was like, oh, whoa, I'm not sure about suddenly being a boyfriend girlfriend with my housemate, because that means we're living together immediately. But that happened. It was so sweet of him. One day, because one of the medications that I was on was strong, so they call it, I think it's ougleic crisis, but it means that your eyes roll up into your head. And so that was happening. And so I was laying on the couch closing my eyes, and he came up and gave me a kiss on each eye and then kissed me on the lips. And I was like, whoa.
That's making the moves.
Yeah. I mean, I had known, it didn't come out of nowhere. I had known he was kind of interested from before that. And we'd been doing like dating kind of things, but I thought we were friends, but he was thinking we were more than friends. So it wasn't completely like, whoa, but and then he just kept on making the moves from there. And so it's been beautiful since then. I've got to know more about his culture, traveled overseas, traveled for 5.5 weeks to Colombia and met his family, who only speak Spanish, mind you. So I've learned some Spanish, and I'm continuing to learn Spanish now.
Oh, wow. And it benefits, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you said an interesting thing. He's so joyful. Like attracts like, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Beautiful. And in your book, you talk about your doctor, saying that you're going to be homeless and on the street. And I loved when I read it, that you were just you weren't buying into any of that. So tell us about where you are now on that front, because I love that part of it as well.
Yeah, so as you said, I had the doctor say I would be homeless, and that was due to my finances at the time and my situation at the time. And I had the strongest resolve ever that I had. I looked at him and I said, no, I will not. I will not.
That's right. No, I will not. There was this determination.
Yeah. And then so since then, I've landed a corporate role in a corporate environment again with a 6-figure salary, and have continued on and made headway, completely turned everything around. And it's now 3 weeks into my first home.
That's so amazing. So amazing. And how long ago was that from being in a dire financial situation to today? How long ago was that?
2.5 years.
Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing. And that's an interesting thing, and it proves that people can think they're in the absolute dire rock bottom, but the reality that you can completely turn it around. And you turned it around through joy, did you not?
Yes, everything was created from joy.
Joy.
Yeah, even the business, the Acuity Coffee. I mean, that really, it wasn't a financially successful venture, but it sure was creative. And it if I look at it on paper, I say at the point, I was paying people to eat the truffles because it was costing me slightly more than I was getting back. But what that led to, and that creation is this multi-dimensional thing where it's not just the profit and loss of one activity, it's the sum of the whole.
Yeah. And
that business led to the corporate environment, which led to something else, and so on it goes.
You followed your joy.
Yeah.
And the next steps, and the next steps.
And that's still happening. I mean, I'm still getting pieces revealed to me as it comes through. Only recently, I've been in touch with the Honourable Bronnie Taylor, who is the New South Wales Minister for Mental Health, and she has 5 copies of my book distributed around her office. And only recently, I thought, why don't I invite her into a conversation for the Being Brave Foundation. So she has that invitation. She hasn't come back yet, but I wouldn't have seen that had I not gone with what was joyful.
Beautiful, beautiful. And you're at Westpac today, is that right? Is it Westpac?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's I mean, it's a huge organization. You know, imagine what an organization that could learn from you through your experiences and through shifting things through joy. I think it's amazing.
Yeah.
And so you also, I know, you also do some coaching as well. I read in your book. Is that something that you're actively? Who do you sort of coach? Who do you work with?
So yes, I actively coach, and I coach people internally and externally. So internally within Westpac, I had someone approach me. So again, with following what was joyful, I found that facilitating workshops was something that was so joyful for me. So I followed that. And in turn, I had someone approach me and say, hey, could you coach me? But I didn't say, I want to do coaching. So, I mean, that's something for the people who are watching this video, is that if you're following what's joyful to you, you will bring more of that to yourself.
Yeah. And would you say you have a unique perspective, having been through your own mental health challenges over the years, to be able to support people that might be facing their own?
It's funny you've mentioned that, because that's exactly what's happened. So I shared my story, and through a friend of a friend, she saw my website and was immediately like, I want to coach with you. And what came up for her was, you know, it was mental health. And so that's what we were talking through. And I was talking through my experiences and how I'd shifted beyond them and held what I went through in a different paradigm than what it usually is, where, you know, they're dealing with people who are homeless, for example.
Yeah.
And still being able to hear that and hold it in a place of love.
Yeah, right. Well, you know, I think, you know, there's a lot of people have been faced with their own challenges through this period that we're in globally at the moment with COVID, etc. So, you know, I think your timing is impeccable, and not only just for people, individuals, but also within the corporate sort of arena. So well done for you for being brave, for sharing your most wonderful story. So how can people get their hands on this book?
If they want to read the book, which will be delightful for them to experience, they can go to www.alanamitchell.com. Yes, exactly. AlanaMaiMitchell.com. And there's the link to the ebook, or you can purchase the ebook there. Or I think if you just look on Amazon, you can get it from Amazon. It's slightly quicker if you go through AlanaMaiMitchell.com.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, Alana, it's such a joy to have you here joining me. And I wish you well with your journey. And I know that you're making a great impact just sharing your story. So thank you for shining your light. Thank you for sharing your journey, and thank you for joining me here today.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, Jason. It's been wonderful.
My pleasure. We'll see you soon.